man, this bill of goods I was sold was not what I thought it was. And here I am in my mid 30s wondering, like, is this it? Am I supposed to now I get married, now I have the kid. I kind of want to do those things, but is that just because I'm supposed to? And all these big questions that come up, is that what it means to be a man? And I'm watching all my other friends get married and have babies, and I'm seeing everyone else like go faster. And am I keeping up, the modern day Joneses, whatever that is? So I think this is a huge question that we need to ask ourselves. All right. Welcome, brothers. It is Michael Diamond here with Russell Reynolds, G. Russell Reynolds.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Russell, we gotta. I'm just gonna go right into a straight up question because I think we gotta address this right at the beginning of this whole journey.
Yeah.
What is masculinity?
And
this is a short form podcast, just to let you know.
Yeah. We're not going to spend 2 hours in a dissertation on this, although it would be easy to do. What is masculinity? It kind of goes into the question of what does it mean to be a man? And it's probably one of the most controversial and overly discussed topics of our generation or our society right now. I mean, officially, biologically, if you've got a cock and balls between your legs, then you're a man. Although that may not be the case anymore.
Yes.
That is now questionable because you've got such individuals trying to win women's sports. That's fair.
Yes. Well, it's fair to say that the definition of masculinity is not only distorted, it's completely undefined at this point and unhinged. And our mission is to bring that back. So we're going to answer it in the way that we know how to do and through the work that we do with Ignite, through taking men through this process. One thing I've noticed or heard in this journey that we've been on with Ignite the King is most men just don't even know something like this is available, that there is a place to do the quote unquote deeper work and be responsible, accountable man in the world. And who's defined that? There's definitely been no playbook that our fathers received. And, we all come with our aptitudes, our challenges, our wounds, all of that. And we've seen in the men that we've taken care of that, no one gave them the playbook. No one told them what being a man is, more what it's not. Right.
Yeah. And to that point, myself included, we have a generation of men raised by women. My dad left when I was 3. Nobody told me what it meant to be a man. I had to figure that shit out on my own through trial and error and more error.
Right. I think now it's called fuck around and find out. Right.
Well, there was definitely some of that. I found out a lot.
He's a very smart man.
Only had to touch the glowing orange burner 4 times. No,
I've done it so you all don't have to do it, okay?
That's the definition of your work is my work. Please learn from our pain. Learn from our mistakes.
Sure.
And, there's a pervasive and perverted, by my judgment, belief system in our society today that masculinity itself is toxic. I call bullshit. It's the absence of masculinity that's toxic. In fact, we mentioned this on a previous episode. 90% of our prisons are filled with men that came from fatherless homes. Mm-hmm. So it is the absence of masculinity that's the problem.
I believe it's 80%, but
it's a lot.
I don't want to overestimate and have someone call us out on it. So we'll underestimate.
80%. Yes. Call me out and then we'll add to the numbers. Either way, it's a lot of people. And this is the thing. I think part of what the old or outdated, if you will, definition of masculinity is if you don't feel and you can beat people up. If you can answer questions with violence, then that makes you a man. Violence, again, in the words of Tim Larkin, self-defense expert, violence is rarely the answer. When it is, it's the only answer. And if that's all it meant to be a man, then any bully would be the highest definition of masculinity. That's not the case.
Not at all.
You know? Yeah. So there's a lot of what is masculinity. It's in my judgment, and that's all we're offering, man, is our judgment, our perspective. You may have something that you feel is strong in the definition of masculinity that I don't mention. Cool. In my judgment, masculinity is living with integrity, and as Michael likes to point out, the root word of grit in integrity. There's grit. There's a matter of toughness in the Viking or Scandinavian culture, sisu, right, which is a determination to succeed against all odds. In fact, the more the deck stacked against you, the more determined you are to finish the job. So there is that element of pushing through discomfort, of leaning into pain. That is one of the qualities of masculinity, and there's a connection to mission, and that mission is something greater than
Wouldn't
yourselves.
you say that most men are missing a mission in their life? I mean, I know 100%. This is something that we've seen so much of in our group is men kind of aimlessly, maybe they're successful by certain metrics, financially, in business, status, whatever it may be, but really aimlessly wandering around like, man, this bill of goods I was sold is not what I thought it was. And here I am in my mid 30s wondering, like, is this it? Am I supposed to now I get married, now I have the kid.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do those things, but is that just because I'm supposed to? And all these big questions that come up, is that what it means to be a man? And I'm watching all my other friends get married and have babies, and I'm seeing everyone else like go faster. And am I keeping up, the modern day Joneses, whatever that is? So I think this is a huge question that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, and it's one of the 5 pains of men that we addressed in a previous episode, is checking all the boxes. Like, I did all these things I'm supposed to do. Why do I still feel empty inside? Yeah, so it's that lack of connection to mission, to something greater than yourself that you're serving. What is the vision for your life? How are you making the world, your family, your community, your city, your country a better place because you were in it for this brief period of time?
Well, these are the 2 topics that we'll be deep diving on the Ignite the King immersion next week, which we're excited about. This is our King immersion coming up. And these are the 2 big things: our vision and there's mission. And if I can elaborate on that for a second,
please,
just to give our audience a little sneak peek, because they might hear this before the men. But there's vision, and that's the king part of you. We're talking about the king energy and archetype, and this archetype expresses itself with different pillars that we'll talk about. These are the 4 keys that you'll take away today on really what it means to be a man. But the king has the vision, but it's the father part of you that has the mission. And whether that's you're fathering children, or you're fathering a dream, or you're fathering someone else's children, or just something in your life that you're fathering through, that's the mission you're carrying out. That's the drive. The king holds the vision. The king's up in the castle on the mountain overseeing the lands, but it's the father, it's the knight, the warrior that's going out in the world and making it happen. But that vision and that mission is unique to each individual man out there. And, part of our immersions, as we know, is to help men connect to that for what that is for themselves. So if you're a man out there listening to this and you maybe feel aimless in your mission, or what is that? Or I've never heard of that, or, I don't know, or I need an update to that, then this is where let's dig in deeper.
That's interesting, Michael. For all of you listeners out there, that's the first time I've heard you say that about the father. Your mission is connected to your father, and of course, that's your unique perspective because you have a son. You are a father, and where initially I'm like, well, as I try on that idea for size, I'm like, well, we're all fathers of something. Yeah. If you have a dream, a vision for more in your life, whether that's a greater relationship, greater finances, greater purpose, whatever it may be, you are a father to that dream. And your job as a father is don't let it die. You have to do what then? You have to feed it.
Another way we say it in Ignite the King is thank you. What you're stewarding, if that word fits better, than fathering for some of you. It's like, what are you stewarding in your life? What's your stewardship? Like, what are you responsible for? What can you take responsibility for? Right. There is the direct father to a son, but it doesn't have to be that.
Well, as a father, where I may have had an initial knee-jerk resistance, I actually kind of love the idea now. Because, I mean, look, you are a father, you are a biological father to a physical being son, right? So I would imagine your first prerogative.
Who is a boy? Just to be clear. My goal every episode out there is to make Russell laugh like that at least one time. That's my goal.
I'm just biting my tongue to keep from pronoun jokes, but it's again, my favorite one is I identify as a threat. My pronouns are try me. So it as the father of a son, I imagine your first prerogative, don't let him die. So you have to feed him, not neglect him, not leave him out in the cold, right? Yeah. So you have to give him shelter and warmth and sustenance. And part of shelter and warmth and sustenance, I would imagine, would be love and connection as well. So when I now shift that to somebody who you're not married, you don't have any children, but you have a dream, same fucking prerogative. Give it sustenance. Feed it. Don't leave it out in the cold. Don't neglect it. Right? So, yeah, and that's a huge part. So, what does it mean to be a man? What's your calling?
Men need mission and purpose. Yeah, calling.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, let's just call like the universal piece here applicable to every man out there, us included. We need mission and purpose. Otherwise, we feel like we're dying. And we don't want to go on. I mean, let's just face it on some level. Right. That's the story, the loop, the belief system that's running for most men. And it can drive us to great things, or it can drive us to the worst things.
Right. That meme of the two lions. One is out on the plains, right, living in the wild, and has to fight for his food, and nothing's guaranteed. The other is living in a zoo. And he's locked in a cage, but all of his food and shelter and accommodations are paid for him and free. Well, which one's happier?
Right.
Which one is the wild beast? Right. So it's like that mission. So that lion out in the wild is connected to a purpose. Like maybe it's just feeding his family. Maybe it's survival. Maybe it's growing his pride. But there's a purpose, there's a mission, there's a drive. Men need that drive. When we are comfortable and complacent, we are dying slowly. I promise you, because I've experienced it myself. When I've got no drive, no purpose, nothing that I'm working towards, that I'm growing, I feel like I'm dying inside. So I think that is absolutely inherent in the DNA of every man on the planet.
And I think it's important I agree. And I can just feel men out there listening to that and being like, yeah, that sounds great, but man, I'm fucking tired. Right? And just how beat down some men may feel and how tired they are. You know, I'm sure in future episodes we'll get into this, but I mean, just the physical aspect, right? And the toxic aspect. I mean, like toxins and just all the shit that our bodies are dealing with that keep our energy down, which keep us in this ho-hum, meh, energy neutral state that we talked about previously, right? Where it's like, there isn't even just like the physiological energy to make a change, right? So in men's minds, it might be like, I know I need that, but like, how do I get over that inertia barrier? For some men, it can feel such like a big gap, that first step especially, right? Look how sometimes it takes like getting hit by a truck to realize you need to do some work on yourself, right? Like, what is a way, before we really get into pillars of masculinity, a man can take that first step? Because if he's not willing to take that first step, then any awareness isn't going to make any change, right?
Right. If everything in your life, and hang on, let's pause for 1 second. So we're taking advantage of the Zencaster. Hector, pause. Is by any chance is the mic picking up Baxter barking in the background, or can you not hear it? All right, he's downstairs. I hear it. I just want to make sure the mic isn't picking him up.
No, I don't hear it.
All right, fantastic. Okay. Carrying on. So, yeah, if everything in your life is working great, cool, but you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast if that were
I'm speaking to the men that know things suck, are in a rut, feel stuck, don't have the energy to like even get that inertia. And I know a lot of the men we're speaking to are on the personal growth path, that are, high level, high achieving men that like are going after their life. And, but there's also men that will be listening to this that maybe catch us for some reason. And they're like, fuck, yeah, that sounds so far out of my reach. How do I take that first initial, because, we're going to start deep diving some stuff here. And we want as many men that could actually benefit from it, get it. So how do we do that with men that need to just take that first step?
Well, the first step I would say is stop trying to do it alone. I mean, the image or archetype of Atlas pushing the stone up the hill, like that's exhausting work because he's doing it all by himself. If you have a brotherhood of men, if you have your tribe that's helping you do that, and that goes against that lone wolf paradigm that we have to do it all by ourselves. Reach out for help. I would say that's step one is recognize that you can't do everything by yourself.
Great. Thank you.
What are your thoughts?
If I would offer one thing, I would tell a man, and this may be hard to onboard at the beginning, but it's not about the circumstance.
That's right.
It's not about all the things that are happening to you in your life and all the challenges you're having and how you stack those challenges, and it's all external to you. It's that moment where a man realizes that the common denominator in all his problems is himself, and takes a deep look in that mirror and says, I'm going to take ownership for my own life. And that begins that process, because that's the sort of awakening moment. At least I had that, and we've seen that with so many men, because there's no going back from that. Like, you can't unsee that, because at that point it's now your duty and responsibility. And I believe that's where the mission gets born out of. But if I was to tell a man one thing, it's never about the circumstance. As much as you want to say, no, they did this to me and this isn't my fault. I get it. I've said all those things, but it's not the circumstance.
Yeah. And the minute you start projecting the blame on everything outside of you or everyone, you also start projecting your power to everything and everyone outside of yourself, making you a victim.
Yeah.
And nobody achieves anything in life as a victim besides more suffering and more victimhood.
So, Russell, I would love for us to start getting a little deeper into what our definition of masculinity is. And I thought for these listeners, for our listeners here, let's talk through what we call the 4 pillars of kingship, because this is really the cornerstones of what a man who's becoming a king in his life, which a king is the ultimate expression, integrated version of a man, right?
Right. Yeah.
The closest to divinity. So in that expression, a king embodies these 4 archetypal, these pillars. So I thought we can bring the men into that.
Yeah. Let's first more clearly identify what is a king. Because guys may be, I'm not a king. I don't have servants. Right. I don't rule over a country. I don't have any vassals. It's an archetype. Okay. Right. It's a paradigm. It's a blueprint.
So what's an archetype? Yeah. That's a good.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to bring that in a lot at the beginning.
And you did mention what's an archetype in a previous episode.
Yeah.
It's a blueprint. It's a framework that fits into our lives and fits into us. And this is that.
In contrast, we hear the queen archetype, right, for the feminine.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Just to give contrast of the king and the queen. If you're in a relationship, if you're in marriage, if you're in a long-term relationship, you're a woman. She embodies the queen energy. You embody the king energy, coming together.
And I think that the whole king queen dynamic is getting a little overplayed right now.
But yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, that's my queen, and she calls me her king. But are you acting like a king? Are you showing up in your life like a king?
Right.
That's the question. So,
I think that most men don't know what that means.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. What does that mean? How do I show up like a king?
Yeah. Well, let's lay out the 4 pillars and we'll dive into each one. And this is going to be part of our takeaways, because just identifying these 4 things in your life is a game changer. Right. Just knowing that this is the metric I need to be looking at to live king energy as a man. Cool. Let's break it down.
Yeah. So these pillars are in this order for a reason, right? Because you can't have the next one without the previous one.
Absolutely.
So the first one, sovereignty.
Yep.
What does sovereignty mean? Well, you are in command of your own life, your own boundaries, right? Within your life, your own borders, same thing. Yep. Within your life, you are sovereign, meaning you are in control.
Or command.
Yeah. So you have to have, as we have said, your standards are your floor, your boundaries are your walls. Right? You have to have clearly defined standards and boundaries for yourself as much as for other people to have sovereignty. Because if you don't, shit's going to run amok. Let's maybe draw a comparison between southern border of the United States right now. Might notice that there's a lack of sovereignty. There's a lack of a border. Whatever your political opinion about it is, the reality is we have seen a 10x increase in the amount of illegal immigration or crossings. I don't know if you can call it immigration when it's become an invasion in the last 2 to 3 years. So there's no sovereignty. So you are no longer in control of what comes in. What do you think that's going to do to your kingdom? What do you think it's doing to the kingdom?
So a man that is out of sovereignty in his life, how's that going to show up?
Well, one of
Lack
the 5
of boundaries.
Right? One of the 5 pains of men that we mentioned in a previous episode is the pleaser. Right? So if you're the pleaser,
giving away
you're
your
saying
power.
Yes. What's
giving
that?
away your power.
Yeah, saying yes to
your
everything.
power. Yeah.
There's no sovereignty there. Or
no freedom.
being a doormat for people.
Yeah.
Right? If you're overworked and underpaid and your boss goes, "Hey, I need you to stay this weekend and do this one more thing." Okay. You have no sovereignty. Or
how many men do that in their relationship where they just, they finally get to the point. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yes, dear.
No sovereignty. So a man embodying king energy, number 1 for a reason is sovereignty. Must have command and control over your own energy.
Yeah. And I want to add one more example of that too, because it may not be with anybody outside of yourself. You wish to lose weight, you wish to get in shape, but when you see the Krispy Kreme donut store, you make a U-turn right into that parking lot, or you grab the alcohol, or you grab the chips, or you grab the weed, or whatever it is that you're giving your power away to. Guess what? You have no sovereignty.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Number 2 is order. So we talk about it. Order in the kingdom. If you can go into that imagination place of being a king in a kingdom, your kingdom, and for most men, your kingdom is your home, your physical structure, your home. That's your kingdom. And then outside of that, it's the people you're responsible for and the people in your influence. And order is about, do you bring order to the kingdom? Are the people in your life flourishing? Are the crops flourishing? Is there stability? Do people feel safe within the borders of your kingdom? And all of this for a man comes down to how much order you have in your own life, the ability to take care of yourself, to provide, to protect, to take care of all the basic necessities. So when there's chaos in your kingdom, there's disorder. So if there's challenges, you are, as a man in a home, the strongest heartbeat in that home. You are the strongest rhythm setter as the king energy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you live alone, you're setting a tone and an energy within your home. So order is about making sure that those floors are solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Without sovereignty, there is no order. Right. And again, drawing the parallel of what's happening in our country right now. And I don't care. Honestly, Michael will tell you that about me. There's a lot of times I give 0 F's about people's opinions about this. I don't care if you think it's controversial. The truth is, with this border invasion, we are losing order in the kingdom. We're becoming overrun, and we're seeing veterans being displaced to make space for illegal aliens. We're seeing, cost of everything going up. We're seeing safety going down. So there's no order in the kingdom.
Right. There's
so
chaos right now. It's building anyway. There's chaos in the bigger kingdom, and
yeah.
And whether that's intentional or whatever, it's happening.
Yeah, we're not even going there. That could become a whole episode. So let's again relate it back to the macro, back to the micro. Relate it back to yourself.
Right.
Where are you lacking order in your kingdom? By the way,
this is a big one
Michael
for men.
said, even if you live by yourself, when you wake up in the morning, is the first thing you do make your bed, or do you leave it a mess all day? You have dishes in the sink. Is your house a mess? Just the physicalness of your house. That's order in your kingdom. That's the first piece of order in your kingdom.
Yep.
Right. And we've often said how you do anything is how you do everything. So if your house is a disaster, how's your finances? How's your relationships? How's your health? How's your appearance?
Yeah.
How's your confidence? All of those are aspects of order in your kingdom. If you don't have those things in order, it's going to be hard to move to the next pillar.
Yeah. And as a tip to men out there, because the hardest work is looking at ourselves and admitting these things. So for this pillar, look around and the people in your life, maybe your wife, your kids, the people that you work with, if you have a business or however that is, how are they doing? Are they thriving in your field when you're around? Like, what's your experience of that? Because it's easier sometimes to see our effect in others than in ourselves, at least at the beginning of this journey of men's work. Because again, we said hardest thing for a man to do is to really look at himself and take ownership of his shit. So how are the people doing in your kingdom? Is there order in your kingdom? Are you always fighting with your spouse? And I hear men say, yeah, we only fight like once a week. I'm like, you fight? Like, really? That often? Okay. But we normalize. So again, really taking stock. That's what these pillars are about.
Yeah.
How about number 3?
Blessing. Without order, you have no blessing to give besides the mess that you're going to hand off to somebody else. Again, we could see this in political arenas, but we're not going to go there. Right? So without order, there's no blessing. And what is blessing? The ability to again, bless and profit the land, the people, as the king, right? If we're going to go with this archetype, let's pretend that you're a king. How are your crops? How are your people? How's your finances? Are you creating blessing? Are you leaving the world a better place because you were in it? That just goes into legacy a little bit, but are you improving the quality of the things that you touch and the people that you engage with?
Russell, would you say a big pain of men in being able to give blessing is that they never received it?
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely true. So, as we said to one of the men in the brotherhood, sometimes you have to give a king's blessing in order to receive a king's blessing. This was somebody who was having a lot of conflict with his father, and his father wasn't recognizing him for anything he had done. But when he flipped the tables and gave his father the blessing and acknowledgement and validation for everything he was to him and everything he was to his children, his father opened up and transformed and suddenly wanted to spend time with him. And suddenly, so that's blessing.
Yeah. Well, you said a paradigm shifting thing. I think we need to pause on for a moment and seeing that he needed to give something in order to get it. We say that almost nonchalantly now because that's just the world we live in with the men that we work with. But I think for a man encountering this work for the first time, it's like, what do you mean I have to give something in order to get it? Right? That was withheld from me. That was taken from me. I didn't get to experience that. I don't have that to give. I don't know what that feels like. Right? Because that's a big change in how a man views the wound.
You want to get more love in your life? Give more love in your life.
I think this comes back to doing the work. The point of doing the work, the reason we talk about doing the work, is so we can make these parts of ourselves whole again.
Yeah.
Right. That's really what it comes back to, like coming back to that wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what it means to give love, to give blessing. You know, we talk about the core wounds that men experience or boys experience that inhibit them from becoming real men is this lack of blessing. Right? It's this mentorship, this fathership to be given to and seen in a way and nurtured along that path from boy to man.
Right. And a lot of men have fathers that nothing they ever did was good enough, and they're always pushing them to be better. It's like if they get an A, well, it wasn't an A plus,
right?
You know,
I know that
can create drive, but it doesn't create joy. It doesn't create wholeness. It doesn't create self-worth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that a lot of men are lacking that blessing. Okay, cool. We recognize that. So this is where we have to take responsibility for giving ourselves the blessings that we didn't get.
Yep.
And by the way, if you find yourself lacking purpose or lacking joy or feeling like you're lacking love, go give blessings. Tell the cashier at the grocery store that you love her hair, or ask her how her day is, or him, or anything. Just give random blessings to people for no apparent reason, and watch how that feeling of love and joy and purpose comes into your life.
Yeah. I think for most men, it's like this, you know, if you're a man that's new to doing the work and self-growth and accountability and all this stuff, it's like this layering around the heart that has to come up and has to come off. And, you know, we acknowledge that there's been pain, there's been trauma. Maybe your father left, maybe he wasn't there, maybe he beat the shit out of you, maybe it has nothing to do with your father, maybe just life has been tough, maybe whatever it is. And each time that happens, there's a layer of protection that goes over the heart. So if you're doing that work, it's like just starting to peel off the layers, feeling safe enough. Receive that blessing, because giving the blessing is how you receive it. That's the paradox of the whole thing.
Right.
So let's get into the last one. Unless you have anything else you want to add on blessing here.
Really said a lot on that. The last one is legacy.
So the first three again: sovereignty, order,
blessing, and legacy.
Oh.
Legacy is what are you leaving behind long after you're gone? That's legacy. And again,
and while you're here,
and while you're here, yeah, of course. Without sovereignty, there's no order. Without order, there's no blessing. Without blessing, there's no legacy beyond you perpetuating the curse that you were given. Right? We talk about, it ran in my family till it ran into me. Are you carrying that curse forward because you didn't get the blessing, so you're not giving the blessing? So kick the can down the road and hope the next generation figures this shit out? Or are you going to be the chain breaker? Are you going to be the one who goes, no, I'm going to leave something behind? So, not having children, I've talked about my legacy is the lives that were touched by the lives that were touched by the lives that were touched by the lives that I touched. I want to create that ripple effect in humanity that raises the collective vibration, that raises the sovereign ascendance of humanity itself.
Yes.
I want to know that the people that I met, that I interacted with, that I loved, that I connected with are better because of it. And it doesn't mean I'm some kind of saint or guru. Jesus, I'm furthest thing from it. Right? I'm a flawed and imperfect human, and I make mistakes, but I'm constantly striving to better myself and to learn from those mistakes and to take accountability for my mistakes. And I want to continue to bless men, women, children through the work that I do, through interaction, right? Even a dog that you see at the park, right? Did you give him love or did you kick him? Right? And if we just look at that metaphor in every interaction, and it can also be through our mission, right? I'm sure you agree with that, Michael. Our mission is part of our legacy.
Yeah.
It's like, how is this world a better
men
place?
have not often connected to is their mission, right? And because that drives their purpose, why we get up every single day, why we do what we do. And again, I'll just bring in the father piece because obviously relevant to me and probably relevant to a lot. You brought in being a father in a much bigger way is beautiful. And for those men that do have children, obviously your name, your legacy, your lineage lives on in your children, especially as a man having a son. I mean, that's how that goes. So for those of you that do have that, I know for me, that was the biggest wake up call that got me into men's work, realizing I had at that time a 1-year-old son, and my identity went from, a man, but now a father. It's a different channel. It's a different channel. And the way I describe it for me is my life for this period of time is no longer about me. I'm serving something else. I'm serving this being. At first, it's to keep it alive, right? And to keep it safe. But now, as he's turning 9, it's like a whole different game. And nurturing that pre-time between an adolescent and a man, he's starting to enter the beginnings of that, right? Where, we can get mystical and metaphysical about it, but he's changing. And my role in his life is evolving. And I see more and more like that passage of time and him rising and getting bigger in my time, frankly, like going second half of my life. And the legacy that I'm living with him and leaving for him, because we said it's a living legacy as much as it is what's there when we're gone. And I think for a lot of men out there, maybe trying to connect with what's there after they're gone, maybe just might feel so far removed. Okay. But living legacy, how are those around you thriving and flourishing because you're living now? So that's what I would add for legacy.
I love it. And, we talk about pay it forward. That's a part of legacy. Somebody does an act of kindness, pay it forward. That's your legacy. So that domino effect, that daisy chain continues, right? If, I'm capable of teaching anybody anything from men's work to self-defense, right? It's only because somebody was patient enough to take the train wreck that I once was and teach me. So I'm going to pay that forward. It's like, wow, you're so patient with us as beginners. I'm like, are you kidding me? You have any idea what I was to work with? Like, of course I'm going to be patient, because there by the grace of God go I. I get to be the blessing that I once had, that I once received, and I'm going to pay that forward. That's part of my legacy.
Yeah. We say with legacy that it's really the culmination of our expression as a man. Because we started this episode with, what's masculinity? I mean, that's the question that got us going here. Right. So in masculinity is this expression of you that is living beyond just you. It's not about you anymore. It is about the highest needs of the soul are growth and contribution, right? We talk about, even Tony Robbins talked about the human needs, but growth and contribution,
right?
Giving back. Once you've learned something enough, once you've embodied something enough, it dams it up if you don't give it back or give it forward.
Right.
And then, as we talked about earlier with something else, then that it gets stale, right? There needs to be flowing movement, fresh water flowing through. So giving back, teaching, mentoring, especially as we get older, we embody more that sage wisdom, that elder energy that is the the wisdom keepers.
Right.
So.
It's that contribution is everything. And since you referenced Tony Robbins, he talks about people who have all the boxes checked. They're millionaires. They're but they're miserable because there's no contribution. And we look at the metaphor of the Dead Sea in Israel, right? Where the water's so thick with salt, you can literally float on it. Do you know why it's called the Dead Sea? Because there's nothing living in it. There's no fish. There's no plant life. There's nothing. Do you know why there's nothing living in it?
I believe because it's dammed up.
It has an inlet where it's taking in, but it's not giving out. There's no outlet. So there's no flow. So that water becomes dead. It becomes stagnant, right? And, I remember I'm dating myself a little bit again. The original movie, Blade Runner, where the character Rutger Hauer played, who is the cyborg at the end, when he talks about all the things he's seen and experienced. And the thing that saddens him the most is that all of it will die with him because he had no opportunity for legacy. He had no opportunity to pass it on. Fred Mastro, the founder of Mastro Defense System, the system I teach, if he didn't share, like, he's accumulated all the skill and knowledge. If he didn't teach it to anybody, it dies with him.
Right.
So thank God that he understands legacy and he's planting that seed in all of us. So what's your legacy?
And I'll just set as an intention here too with this podcast. Part of our legacy with Ignite the King is to get this message out there to live on beyond us and to reach men that if they hear one thing on this episode that helps to transform their life, then we're living our mission and fulfilling our legacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say aho, but we haven't explained aho, that it's a total cultural appropriation.
Oh.
On purpose.
So just to review, and we'll just get into some actionables here at the end. We talked about what a man is, and we did that through the archetype of the king and the Ignite the King work of the 4 pillars of kingship. And this is sovereignty and order and blessing and legacy, and how to embody that and how to assess that in your life right now.
Yeah. And I want to recap a couple of things on what is masculinity? What does it mean to be a man? Rise up, right? Become the best version of yourself you can possibly be, right? Live with integrity, live with honor, live with purpose. Find a mission, something you're passionate about. Protect the innocent, right? Do hard shit. Lean into discomfort. That's all part of what it means to be a man. Those are all pillars of masculinity. And then as we believe the most sacred expression of masculinity is that king energy. Yeah, lover, absolutely important. Warrior, that's doing hard shit. That's facing your fears. Yeah, and we get into all the other archetypes, but the king, that's the culmination. That's where you step into these other pillars of sovereignty and order and legacy, or blessing and legacy. And this is where, again, humanity evolves.
Yep.
And you're a part of the evolution.
Wow. All right. I think that's going to do it. I think we're really sent that message out.
I hope so.
More to come.
Always.
Thank you for listening, men. Stay strong. Reach out. Take this in.
We'll see you on the next one.
Signing off.